So today we're going to use slope-intercept form and standard form to graph lines. So I know it says warm up here. It's actually to get your brain going, to connect to something you've done previously. So what I'd like you to do, beside the first graph, write this equation down and solve it for y for me. So you just took a minute and you solved this for y. So let's pick on Sean. Sean, tell me what to do first. Wonderful. So I'm going to subtract 12x from both sides. Negative 4y equals negative 12x plus 20. Sean, pick somebody. Draven, what do I do next? Perfect. Divide everything by negative 4. So I get y equals 3x minus 5. Now, how many of you remember doing this for your chapter test? Last week, right? Yeah, you actually did this right on the chapter test. Now we're going to connect it to something that's new for this chapter. Being able to tell me about the slope and the y-intercept. So remember, we use m for slope and we use c for the y-intercept. Raise your hand if you could tell me one of those. The y-intercept is negative 5. Slope is 3. Perfect. Now, sometimes people get these confused, or sometimes you don't write the equation in the correct order, which is fine. Did anybody write your equation y equals negative 5 plus 3x? That's fine. I will not take points off because you decide to rearrange the equation. But you do need to know which one's the slope and which one is the y-intercept. Well, I like to think of the slope, the m, as the married person. Two people are married, they are together, right? See how the slope has married the x. They're together. They're always going to be together. For the y-intercept, the b, is like your bachelor. A bachelor is single, by themselves, right? So the negative 5 is all by itself. It doesn't have anybody beside it being multiplied with it. So that's a way to think of that may actually help you to remember that. So now, let's go ahead and graph that on our first graph. 3x minus 5. Okay. Y equals 3x minus 5. Raise your hand and tell me, what do I do first? Tyler. I go down 5 on the y-axis, right? That's right. I have to put a dot on this y-axis to help me to graph. All right. What's next? Up 3. 1, 2, 3 over 1. I'm actually going to put that over 1 because you said over 1, which is correct. And by the way, when you say over 1, it means to the right 1. Always go to the right. So let's do that again then. 1, 2, 3 over 1. 1, 2, 3 over 1. 1, 2, 3 over 1. Now, why am I okay? This is the hard part. Why am I okay to actually go down 3 and to the left 1? It continues the line. Why is that mathematically allowed? Because I agree, it does continue the line. Sean? I'm going down, and then I'm going to the left, which is also negative. And a negative over a negative makes a? They both work, right? Now I'm going to connect that line. Now remember, I can connect this because it's an equation, not just a chart of numbers. Now, I put a lot of points on this, right? Why? Why would I put a lot of points on this, especially for something maybe coming up in the future? To make sure the line is straight. Anybody think of something you did in Algebra 1 that's going to be coming up in a month? The keystones, yes, but that's not what I was looking for. I'm not thinking testing. I'm actually thinking a topic in Algebra 1 where I deal with graphing again. Graphing inequalities, okay. Okay, that's what we're doing now. Okay, that's the inequality. That was a good one. I like this. I like these guesses. Graphing system of equations. Remember when you did that, you had to find where they cross, right? The more points you put on there, the better you'll be able to do at finding the point where they connect, right? So that's why you want to put a lot of points on there. Well, I want to make sure you've got this down. We're going to have you practice one. So the next graph, there's our next one to do. 1/2 x plus 1. Take a minute and graph that. Okay, it seems like most of you have this, so I'm going to start at 1. I'm going to go up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2. I'm going to do that many times. That way, if I get in the habit now, when I start doing graphing inequalities, which we'll actually make a picture for, or graphing systems of equations, I'll already be in the habit of connecting a lot of different points. Now, just so you know, I will never hand you a ruler in this class because the school has given you something that works better. You know what that is? Yeah, your agenda book is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I'm going to do yours real quick. This is the best grade edge ever. It's actually better than my ruler because normally they break. That's why I say that. All right. So let's try this problem. 3x minus 2y equals 6. Go ahead and solve that for y. But then don't graph it yet. Just solve it for y and make sure everybody in your group agrees. All right, raise your hand if you got that equation. Wonderful. Now, I actually heard one group actually say, it's the same thing, it's just written differently. I think it was your group, right? Hey, that's helpful that you actually see that on somebody's paper, isn't that? So now, in your group, go ahead and graph that equation. In your group, go ahead and graph that equation. Well, that's why that's off. There we go. I had a point off slightly. Okay, raise your hand if you have that equation. Good. So, some of you do this a different way. Anybody in here, if you were graphing that equation, want to do it a different way? Like you're like, oh, I could do it some other way. No? All right, I'm going to do this a second way. Now, this first way, we just did it, works 100% of the time. This second way is quicker, but doesn't always work as nice. So let's go ahead and try it that way. And here's all the work I'm going to show. An XY table, and I'm going to put a 0 in for X, and I'm going to put a 0 in for Y. Okay, and I'm going to fill in the spot beside it. Now, if I'm doing this, I can actually show just this work, and it will work for me. So if I plug 0 in for X, what does Y equal? What would Y? What? -3, right? Okay. If I plug 0 in for Y, 3 times what is 6? 2, all right. So I'm going to graph those 2 points. 0, -3, 2, 0. If I connect them, what line do I have? This one. So it works for graphing an equation, right? But what happens when we get to graphing systems of equations? Do you think you'll find that point where they intersect them as well? No. So I recommend the first way. Raise your hand if you've done it the second way and you like that way. Nobody? Okay, perfect. Everybody does it my way then, the first way. If you like the second way, I'm okay with you doing it that way. It's up to you. It's a choice, right? Okay. So we've got one more thing we want to talk about. And before we actually try these last two problems, I want to write down some keywords we talked about yesterday. Hoiva. So Nate, you missed it. Hoiva. It's fun to say. Go ahead and say it. Isn't it fun to say? Okay. Hoiva is actually a very important key two words there. It's going to help you when graphing. Chandler, what's the H stand for? Horizontal. Okay. So if I have a horizontal line, Amanda, what's the slope? Zero. See how there's a zero right there? I'm actually going to write that 0 over 4, 0 over 5. 0 over another number makes that 0. All right, who remembers what the Y stands for? Josh. Equals a number. See how this has two letters in it? That means it has a slope. If there's only one letter and it's the letter Y, it's got to be a horizontal line. That's what this is telling me. All right. Dalton, what does the V stand for? Perfect. Vertical. All right. Trevor, what's the U stand for? Perfect. Undefined. Now, just in case you don't realize this, an undefined slope would be like 4 over 0. Zeros on a denominator is considered undefined. Make sense? All right. And the final thing would be x equals a number. If it's just x equals, that's going to help me there. Okay, let's try graphing this. So you probably need to turn your paper over. And here's our first one. Y equals -2. Always write the equation down. No matter how simple it is, write it down. So, it's saying Y, right? Is this my Y line, or is this my Y line? Up and down, right? So find -2 on this. According to Hoiva, which word do I need to worry about? Hoi or va? Hoi, right? Because the letter Y is in Hoi. Make sense? Okay. Okay, according to Hoi, this line should be which way? Side to side, or use a keyword, horizontal. So I'm going to make a horizontal line right through there. All right, Caleb, I've got a key question for you. According to Hoi, the slope of this line right here is, according to Hoi, the slope of the line I showed you right here is perfect. Perfect. Make sense? Okay, let's try another one. Last problem of the day. X equals 3. I'd like you to write down the equation, graph it, and write the slope down. We have lots of stuff to do, aren't I? Write the equation down, graph it, and write the slope down. Write the slope down, and write the equation down. Wonderful. X equals 3, straight up and down. And Tiffany, you haven't talked that on boys. Slope of 1. Undefined is right. Any questions? All right, that is the end of our lesson.